Hey everyone, and welcome to this brief McKinney-Vento training. My name is Chris Arbogast, and I'm the Child Find Coordinator here at West Virginia Virtual Academy. And in this brief video, I'm going to go over some McKinney-Vento basics and provide an overview of our program as we get our 2025-2026 school year off to a great start. First, I want to go over some learning objectives. After this video, hopefully you will understand the relationship between homelessness and education and how the one impacts the other. You should be able to describe living situations that are covered by the McKinney-Vento Act, know strategies to identify our MKV students or potential MKV students, and understand basic McKinney-Vento protections. And so the first thing I want to talk about is this relationship between homelessness and how that impacts a student's education. Identifying and supporting MKV students as early as possible is very important because homelessness can have a huge impact on their success in and out of school, their quality of life, even after their schooling years. And so looking at this flow chart, you can see some of the barriers that homeless students face, like high mobility. They're always moving around. They lack a permanent fixed residence, and so they are often moving from place to place trying to find a little bit of stability. Of course, there's trauma, there's fear that they experience as a result of being homeless, and just the unknown that comes with that. It's difficult oftentimes to meet enrollment requirements that are required by schools and LEAs. Poor health, poor hunger, poor sleep habits, all of these things are directly tied to being homeless and just lacking support and resources. And something else that we see is a lot of times our McKinney-Vento students are caring for other siblings. We see this a lot with especially the older students. They're taking care of younger siblings. They're even sometimes taking care of parents. And so this puts a lot of pressure and stress and strain on them, and sometimes their education just naturally is not at the top of the priority list, and understandably so. But the issue is we can see that these barriers, these issues lead to things like declining enrollment, chronic absenteeism. They're just, when they're fighting for their life and the lives of their family members, and they're trying to gain some stability, school is not at the top of the priority list. Mental health challenges, for sure. This is incredibly damaging to the students' mental health and their families' mental health, and this leads to lower high school graduation rates. It leads to lower post-secondary enrollment, and it just makes things so difficult, really, for the rest of their lives if they are not identified and given the proper support and resources. And so that's why the McKinney-Vento Act is so important, and that's why we really strive to identify our students here at WVVA as early as possible to help get them on a track that leads to success. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with McKinney-Vento, the McKinney-Vento Act is a federal law that makes us, as the LEA, responsible for identifying these students and providing the necessary supports to hopefully overcome as many of those barriers as possible. But this is a federal law mandated by the federal government that everyone has to follow. And so, kind of getting into what McKinney-Vento is and who's responsible for those things, the first thing I want to talk about is a couple definitions. There are two definitions that we need to understand, and the first is being the definition of homelessness, which is children and youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. That is what code defines homelessness as. And so this can look many different ways. There are different categories that our students fall into. The most common being this first one, sharing the housing of others. We refer to this as being doubled up, and this is definitely the situation that most of our MKV students are in. They don't have a fixed, regular nighttime residence of their own, and so they're staying with a family member, or they're staying with a friend of the family, or sometimes they're just staying with whoever will have them. The next category is the one we see second most common, which is living in hotels, motels, trailer parks, camping grounds, that sort of thing. And then they can be in emergency shelters. They can be in living out of a car, living in a park, bus station, all of these different things. Substandard housing, I want to make a note about that as well. A family can be in a fixed residence, but if it's inadequate or if it's substandard due to infestations, mold, being in disrepair, just all sorts of different things, they can still qualify as being homeless if it doesn't meet that adequate and standard housing metric. The second definition I want to talk about is that of unaccompanied youth, because this is another group of potential McKinney-Vento students, and we see this a lot with older students. The definition of unaccompanied homeless youth is a homeless child or youth not in the physical custody of a parent or guardian. So one example that comes to mind, I had a student who she was at the high school and she didn't have a great home life, and she ended up leaving her home and was living with a boyfriend and his family because it was just more stable for her to be in that situation. And so that would qualify here, where she's not under the physical custody of her parent or guardian, and also she's lacking a permanent fixed residence of her own. And so she meets both the homelessness definition and the unaccompanied youth definition, and so she can also qualify for McKinney-Vento as well. And I will make a quick note on that, that the definition does say child, and so that's students of any age prior to adulthood. All right, here are some statistics from the National Center for Homeless Education. It just kind of breaks down these categories of where students are staying, where our homeless students are staying on a national scale. These are the latest numbers are from 2021, 2022. But for us at WVVA, this matches pretty close to what we see. Definitely the majority of them are doubled up, like you see in this chart. I would say that for us, the second most common is hotels, motels, not shelters. But we do see all of these, but it's mainly doubled up in hotels and motels. So as we've already discussed, it is our responsibility as the LEA to remove as many of these barriers as possible, which is what the federal law mandates here, that we must develop, review, and revise policies to remove these barriers. And so that is what we are trying to do. We want to get as many of these barriers out of the way so that our students can be the most successful. So here's a chart highlighting the responsibilities for teachers, office staff, and admin here at WVVA, and we're going to take a look at each of these a little closer. But this is a good snapshot or overview of what those responsibilities are. So the first group I want to talk about are our teachers, because you guys spend the most time with our students and you get to see them the most often. You can often identify them the earliest, which is super important. And so you're kind of on the front lines, and hopefully you are keeping an eye out for identifying any kind of warning signs like frequent absences, incomplete work, fatigue, wearing the same clothes, their environment, keeping an eye out for any of these things that maybe seem off or have suddenly changed, because these things, frequent absences, incomplete work, fatigue, wearing the same clothes, that describes most of my 8th graders that I had back in brick and mortar. And of course, they were not all homeless. So having one of these signs, or maybe even 2 or 3, or maybe even 4 of them, does not mean that they're homeless. You kind of have to take all of these things and piece them together to get a broader look at the situation. But it's things to be looking out for. Obviously, building trust, creating a safe and supportive classroom is so important for all of our students, but especially our most vulnerable students that we have here at WVVA. If you do suspect a student may qualify as McKinney-Vento, you do suspect that they are in a homeless situation, please refer them to the liaison, which is me. My contact information will be at the end of this slide deck, but definitely refer them. Even if you're not sure, it would be better to refer them and let us look into it and see if they do qualify, rather than just hoping that you were wrong or maybe things weren't as they seemed. Do not be afraid to reach out if you suspect any student is in a homeless situation. And of course, collaborating with the other groups here at the school to just make sure that we're providing academic and social emotional supports. The next group I want to talk about is our office staff. Our office staff members are often the first point of contact for families. Every time a family enrolls or a student enrolls and they complete the enrollment questionnaire, they answer questions regarding their housing situation. And so we take that information and we apply the proper tags if needed, and then we follow up with them in terms of McKinney-Vento resources and supports. Also, this first point here, LEAs are required to enroll students immediately if they qualify under McKinney-Vento, regardless of whether they provide all of the required documentation or not. So that's important to keep in mind as well. Definitely maintaining confidentiality. We want to protect the privacy of our students and their families in regard to their housing status. And we also distribute information throughout the school year regarding their rights under McKinney-Vento. We also send out a needs assessment that they fill out to let us know what we can do to best help them. And then the third group is administration. And these are our school leaders. And of course, they play a crucial role in setting the tone and ensuring policy compliance. So we definitely want to be compliant. This is a federal mandate. And so we do things like this video. So we train our staff to help them recognize and refer potential MKV students, coordinating with me, the MKV liaison, to make sure that we're getting the services to those students and families. We're monitoring academic progress, making sure that what we are doing is helping, that we don't need additional accommodations there. We want to make sure that we are fostering equity, that all students are getting what they need, regardless of whether they have that fixed permanent nighttime residence or not. And again, we want to remove as many of these barriers as possible, hopefully all of them, so that our students can be the most successful. One of the last things I want to say is just that early identification is so important. The sooner that we can identify these students, the sooner we can start helping them and providing them the support that they need. So please be on the lookout for any common signs. I've listed some here: poor attendance, lack of organization or engagement, fatigue, signs of health or nutritional neglect, poor hygiene, incomplete or missing classwork, sudden marked changes in behavior, mood, aggression, anxiety. The list truly does go on and on. And again, it's important to understand that a student might have 3, 4, maybe even 5 of these things, and that does not mean that they are in a homeless situation, but it could mean that. And so we just have to make sure that we are being vigilant in our observations and making sure that we're documenting and referring any student that we believe could be experiencing homelessness to myself, the liaison, or also our social worker, Melissa Caldwell, who's fantastic. Melissa came on last school year and has been a huge help in so many ways, but especially McKinney-Vento. She's really taken this on. She has a lot of experience in helping these families, and so she's been working to create resources to link families across the state to get the support that they need. So if you have any questions or concerns, or if you need to refer a student to us, please don't hesitate to reach out to me as the liaison or to Melissa as a social worker. We do a lot to help our McKinney-Vento students. Unfortunately, um, federal law does restrict us in what we can do. We can't pay for rent. We can't provide them food. There's lots of things we can't do, um, but there are a lot of things that we can do. And just being aware that our students are in this situation is really important in helping us identify how to best help them. So I hope this helps. If you do have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you guys have a great school year, and best of luck in those classrooms. Thank you.